It's lights out!
Welcome back to another episode of Drive Through Penalty. I'm Sean. I'm here with my father, Craig. This week we're going to talk about last week's race in Spain. We're going to talk about this week's race in Canada, some F1 news, some F1 fantasy strategy, and as always, some good old F1 history with CD.
Before we get rolling here, I just want to welcome everybody to our country, Canada. And I hope you enjoy this race as much as we have over the years. What did you think of Spain?
I thought it had just about everything. It was a good race. It wasn't overly exciting until we got the safety car at the end. And boy, oh boy, those last 10 laps were pretty exciting. Obviously, everybody's been talking about it all week long, but Max Verstappen had a little incident. And if he keeps up with what he's doing right now, he's going to be watching the race in Spa from his couch at home.
It's happened before to other drivers. And you know what? I was just starting to like him. Because when he's not winning every week, it's interesting to see how he deals with the media and everything. And I think overall he's been pretty good. It's easy for him to say, well, I'm doing as good as I can. The car's not that good, But when he does this hissy fit and, what he did was, it's not just silly. It's very dangerous too. And it's just, I don't appreciate it. And if you heard Russell this week just say how he's lost respect for him and everything, and even the Red Bull team didn't really have a lot of comments on it either. So there's something brewing in there.
Definitely biting their tongue a bit. Red Bull made the mistake of putting Max on those hard tires at the end. You could see he was frustrated. It was the wrong call. But, that's not how you react to something like that. He's done it before. That only added fuel to the fire with him and George's beef. So, I don't know. It's going to make for an interesting rest of the season. But you're right. I think Red Bull didn't appreciate it. Max knew exactly what he did. I heard the radio of him coming in. He didn't really have much to say. He didn't seem surprised he got the penalty.
Well, that's what he had to say was that, he didn't agree with being forced to let him by.
Anyways, I'm sure you guys have been hearing about it all week long.
Don't forget, he got driver of the day. That's total BS. Just
if you're a fantasy player again, it pains me, when stuff like that happens. I think they got to make a change there with the driver of the day. Obviously, votes are being cast before the last 10 laps, or, that wouldn't happen like that.
No, I don't think we need fantasy fans deciding who the driver of the day is. I think that could be done just like a hockey game. That can be done right from the booth.
I think it's fine if the fans are doing it. Just don't tie it in with the fantasy points because it shouldn't have any correlation as to how your team scores throughout the week, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, there was no surprise who was 1 and 2. And, I kind of think that's going to happen a lot this year because this coming weekend's a fast track. And I can't imagine anybody being anywhere near these two cars.
Yep.
But going back to Red Bull just for 1 second and we'll move on is Tsunoda. He finished last in the qualifying. And I don't know what everybody else thinks out there. And I'm not the guy that's always headhunting, but his time's got to be almost up.
And his time just started. We were talking about Liam Lawson losing his seat. Feels like just a few weeks ago. Now we're already talking about Tsunoda losing it. And I'm telling you, if it's not going to happen this weekend, I think we're going to see Hadjar in that Red Bull in the next couple of weeks, Silverstone or Spa.
So being an Alonso fan, as I am, God love him, You
must have watched the podcast last week and he lit a fire under his ass because he was driving for his life.
So I watched the after race, where they interview all the drivers and that. And Alonso did say, he had a real burr up his behind and he did it for the hometown fans. And I just think he makes it too big a deal of coming in ninth.
Anyways, enough of last week's race in Spain. I think it's time to move into Canada. Just real quick, if you guys like the videos, we'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, and CD and I would appreciate it.
And if you do subscribe we're going to send you some poutine and some beer, because that's what we're doing all weekend in Montreal.
All right, this weekend we're racing at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, Montreal, Canada. 4.36 kilometers long, 70 laps. It's a hybrid track. It's a semi-street circuit, semi-track. The weather's always wild.
A couple of years ago we were there and it tried to snow.
It's crazy. I'm very much looking forward to this weekend.
So you get a chance to see Sean do his lap on the sim racing later, so you'll see the actual circuit, and hopefully, you'll understand the charisma there. But what is the storyline, in your opinion, for this week in Canada? Do we expect, as I do, because it's a fast track, that McLaren runs away with everything? What's the bounce back between Mercedes and Red Bull?
Well, Mercedes got to make some changes this week because they are really struggling. And, we saw Antonelli DNF again last week. It's tough to see because, these guys want to race. They want to put up points, but their car's really stopping them here. So I expect to see Mercedes fighting this week, and with Ferrari, we talked about Williams last week. I'd love to see Williams. Aston Martin's looking a little bit better, but Lance Stroll's not going to be racing this week from my understanding. There's a lot of chatter on the internet that, maybe Valtteri Bottas is going to be coming in to replace him. But I don't think it's in the contracts. I don't necessarily think that can happen. So their two reserve drivers, Drugovich and Van Doorn, doesn't look like they're going to be racing this weekend. Because
they're in Le Mans.
They're at the Le Mans this weekend. But I think Drugovich said, you know what, forget it. We'll see you next year at Le Mans because this is my chance to get into that seat and show these guys what I'm made of. This might be the end of Lance Stroll. I don't know.
Le Mans is pretty big.
It is. And it's
the Indy 500. It's the Monaco and Le Mans.
But if this can secure him a seat in Formula One, in an Aston Martin, I don't know. I think it's worth it for him.
I think we're going to see a bunch of changes with these manufacturers next year because they're already talking about Russell going to Red Bull, Max and Lewis both going to Aston Martin when Newey's car is ready. I mean, God only knows, and usually they don't wait to the end of the season. We could start getting these hits any day now. So it's I'm not trying to start any stories, but I'm reading this stuff.
Other than that, maybe we see Max on his best behavior. I think we're going to see Tsunoda fighting for his life. There's a lot on the line for a lot of teams right now. And if Lando and Oscar finish 1-2 again, say goodbye to the championship for everybody else.
So, as we do all the time, who do you see on the podium in Canada?
All right, so I'm a little behind in these mini side bets we have every week, and I'm going to have to change it up a little bit. But I'm still going to go Oscar first. I'm going to go Lando second. And I'm going to say Alex Albon third in the Williams.
Wow.
And if you watch last year's race, he had the overtake of the year at the circuit. It was in the pouring rain. So those are my three.
I got Oscar. I got Lando. I got George Russell.
Okay.
Because I think a fire has been lit beneath them. And hopefully they got some upgrades or whatever. That third place could be anybody. I'm not going to go with Max because I think Max is going to have to be a little more conservative for the next two races, and then it becomes a year up, and he gets some points back, just like a driver's license does.
I like it. And as we know, anything can happen in Canada. The weather can determine everything. If you play fantasy, you know that this could be devastating if things don't go your way. So keep in mind maybe the no negative chip if we're expecting rain. We'll wait a little bit before we make that call. It's got the infamous Wall of Champions, that final chicane, and it's taken out a lot of champions over the years, Schumacher, Villeneuve. So, anything can happen at this circuit.
So being my son, Sean, I want you to put a special helmet on for this little test drive because I don't know what you're going to do in that in the chicane at the end. Show us the way.
Let's do it.
All right, we're here in Canada. Open DRS to start the lap. Just a short run to the first corner. This is where most of the cars will bunch up during the race. Slow second turn, letting that car run wide. Carrying speed here through corners 3 and 4. Looking at that exit wall through turn 5. Hitting the brakes hard here for the chicane. Turns 6 and 7, all the way down to second gear up to third. Speeding up. DRS is open again. We're going to just try to clip the curves here through 8 and 9. Now we're coming up to one of the tightest hairpins on the entire calendar. We're going to drop all the way down to second gear. Trying to get on that throttle nice and early. We have a long back straight here. Great for a tow. DRS is open. And we are about to approach the infamous Wall of Champions that's taken out so many. bouncing off the curbs. We have survived open throttle, and that's a lap in Canada.
Well, thanks for the lap, Sean. I don't know, did you do that in French or English?
We survived. Another fun lap. As you can see, this is why I love Canada. So a lot to look forward to next weekend, counting down the days. And in the meantime, let's jump into our favorite segment, because I have a feeling we're going to be sticking with the Canada theme this week. History with CD.
We are. We're going to do Team Villeneuve, a father and son duet that are probably the two most famous Formula One drivers in Canadian history. We'll start off with Papa. And Gilles Villeneuve was born in Quebec in 1950. And the reason that's kind of funny is that when he got into Formula One later, he was 27 years old, but he told everybody he was born in 1952 so that they would think he was only 25 years old. He was that concerned that people would think he's too old to go racing in Formula One debut. But he started out at a young age. He got into snowmobile racing, and that's kind of how he got his need for speed. And as he got a couple of years ago, he was doing very well. He was like a Canadian champion, and he won in the U.S., and he was just a young fella. And he wanted to get into open-wheeled racing. And I don't think he did a whole lot of go-karting. He just went into open-wheel racing. He started out in Formula Ford, and he eventually won that championship, and then he moved up to Formula Atlantic, which was the next step up, and he won that a couple of times. He had some issues. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't from a wealthy family, and those cars he was running in Formula Ford were his. It was his car, and they didn't have the funds to keep everything going. So, as we've talked before, it's an expensive hobby. So he made his money snowmobile racing. And he said that it was really good for, like he won everything in that. But he said it was really good for his racing skills, because he says if you're not in first place, you can't see a thing. And so it's all really, really quick responses, which obviously become very important as your racing cars get quicker and quicker. Interesting story, the way he got invited to McLaren in 1977 was James Hunt was on that team. And James Hunt used to race him in Formula Atlantic. And James Hunt said, you need to get this guy, give him a shot. So they gave him a shot. He was very erratic. He was just a speed demon. And so he got himself into trouble more than once. So he had quite a skirmish in his last bout at McLaren. The season-ending race in Japan that year, he got into an accident with Ronnie Peterson. And I remember this. The cars went in, the tires came off and went into the stands. Well, it wasn't so much the stands. They went into unsolicited areas where there were some spectators and marshals, and killed two of them. So in 1978, he actually wins in Canada. And over his Formula One career, he had 6 wins in total. I think he would have had a lot more wins had he not had that fatal, brutal accident in Belgium. And I was reading up on that accident, and his car took off like a torpedo, and it went the length of a Canadian football field in the air. A couple of the drivers pulled over, pulled him out of the fence, and they managed to keep him on life support so his wife could fly in from Monaco. He had moved his family from Quebec to Monaco earlier to be closer to the Maranello factory. He was very, very popular, though, amongst the drivers. And some of the quotes about him were at his funeral were interesting. Jody Scheckter said he was the fastest driver he had ever seen. And Niki Lauda said he was the craziest driver that he had ever seen. But they loved him as a person. They loved him off the track. And he became more popular after he died. And there's still tributes to him in Italy. I think one of the tracks still got his name in the number 3 spot on the grid because that's where he started that race from. And in 1982 in Canada, they changed the name of the track to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. In 1971, Jaques Villeneuve was born in Quebec. He was 7 years old when he moved to Monaco with his family. And his mother knew at a very young age that this kid wanted to race. And I think it was go-karts at the age of 4. But his mother she didn't want to tell me he couldn't race, despite what had happened to his father. But she really prioritized his schooling. In order to get funding from his mother to help start his racing career, she picked mathematics as something he had to do a lot better at. And this went back and forth for years. I don't think he was the favorite student. I think he actually was asked to leave his private school in Monaco. In 1994, after moving up the ranks by winning, the Formula Atlantic and all that stuff, he ended up in kart racing. So his very first year in kart racing at the Indy 500, he was Rookie of the Year. In 1995, he won the Indy 500 a year later, and he was the kart champion that year with 5 more wins. Brings us to 1996, and then he joined the Williams team in Formula One. And his first year, he got 4 wins. In 1997, he got 7 wins. And he was the world champion of Formula One, first Canadian to do that. His dad didn't get a chance, didn't have the same car. And that final race in 1997 was the famous one where he got into Schumacher. Wasn't as fast. And if Schumacher didn't finish ahead of Villeneuve, he would be world champion again. And Villeneuve got past him. I remember watching this live, and Villeneuve got past him. And as he was going past, Schumacher turned his car right into the side of Villeneuve. And Villeneuve went on to win that race. And Schumacher actually lost his license for a few races for doing that. So he raced Formula One all the way to 2006, but he got into some situations where he switched teams and the teams weren't that good, and it just it fizzled out. One other thing to note, in 1997, he became the second racing car driver ever to win a kart championship, the Indy 500 and a Formula One championship. And only to Mario Andretti, who was first. In 2025, he got signed by Williams to be a brand ambassador for them. And if you follow it on TV, he's a pretty good commentator in my mind. He speaks his mind, he's opinionated, and really doesn't care who he offends. And some of us like that. So to sum up, this 11-time Formula One race champion just proves that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
Some good old Canadian history for you. Thanks again, CD, for that. We love it.
Avec plaisir.
Before we wrap up this video today, we're going to talk about our fantasy Formula One teams. So stick around. We're going to go over budget building, who to pick up, who to drop, and who to look out for. Let's do it.
Pay attention now.
Welcome back to the Fantasy Formula One segment of this video. We're going to jump right into it. So this is our team last week. We still have Piastri as our ×2. We were able to get Ferrari in as our second constructor, so we now have 2 premiums. I think we're exactly where we want to be. They look much better than Mercedes right now. Probably your top 2 constructors to pick, with Piastri being your number 1 premium driver. The most important part right now is how do we build budget? How do we still maintain a high score every week and stay competitive? We're at $109 million, looking pretty good, but we eventually want to get those 2 premium drivers, so we have to continue building budget every week to get there, also while still maintaining good points throughout the week. So we're pretty happy with our team right now. Hajar's looking good, Lawson's looking good. Alonso and Colapinto are just there to free up extra money for our other assets. But there are a couple things that we're considering this week. But let's jump over to the budget builder section of F1 Fantasy Tools, and that's going to help us make our decision. So here we are. If we're looking at our A-tier drivers, Piastri is still in the number 1 spot with 22 points. He's still going to get us a $0.3 million increase. Leclerc is actually looking good as the second premium driver, followed by Norris, Hamilton, Russell, Verstappen, and Antonelli. The real important part is our B tier drivers. This is where you gain an advantage on your opponents, and this is where you can really scoop up some points, but more importantly right now, our budget. Because again, we want those 2 premium constructors and drivers. So we don't have Hülkenberg on our team, and he's looking like the #1 pick this week. If you don't have him and you can afford him, I suggest bringing him in. All he has to do is not DNF to increase by that 0.6 million, which is pretty good. He's looking quite sharp these days. So other than Hülkenberg, we want to take a look at Hadjar, Lawson, Colapinto, Bortoleto with a -6, 4, 6, and 10 to get that maximum price increase. Pretty good. We do have 3 of those 4 right now. It'd be nice if we could pick up Hülkenberg, but I don't know if we're going to be able to afford it. So jumping back over to our team, there's not much we can do. We only have $1.8 million in reserve. We have 2 moves. You know, if we drop Fernando Alonso, it frees up 6.3 million, but we still don't have enough for Hülkenberg. So that doesn't really do us any good. We're going to be just making sideways moves at this point. Unless we drop down Ferrari to Mercedes because they look really good in FP1, 2, and 3, then we do have the $10.7 million and would be able to put in Hülkenberg. The only way I'll do this is if Mercedes is looking much better this week. Now, over to the budget builder, they need 55 points to get that +$3 million increase, and that's going to be tough. So, you know, some things to consider. I still like kind of my team right now. I might make 1 move, but again, it would be Colapinto to Bortoleto, or just to do this for the 1 week to hopefully scoop up the 0.6 from Hülkenberg, and then we'd revert back next week to Alonso, because I think there's no way he stays at the $4.5 million, and he's just going to start increasing. But most importantly, we're going to watch FP1, we're going to watch FP2 and FP3 before we make our decision. We're going to wait right up until qualifying because anything can happen. Chips to consider this week, depending on the weather. If you watched last year's race, it was insane and a bunch of drivers DNF, so the no negative chip would be good. Other than that, we're probably going to hold on to just about everything else. We are going to save our limitless chip till another week, and that's it. So if you have any questions, drop them down below. Good luck to y'all, and let's get back to the video.
Okay, Sean, thanks for the update. Good luck to everybody out there.
So good luck to y'all. We're excited. It's going to be a good one. If it's anything like last year, it's going to be chaos. We're excited. And again, if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
We're back, Sean. We're in Montreal, Canada.